Understanding the Mavericks' strategic direction, this trade isn't just about Martin and Grimes as individual players, it's part of a much broader picture for the Mavericks. Over the past couple of years, we've seen the Mavericks make several big moves, such as the trade with the Los Angeles Lakers that saw Luka Doncic head to LA for Anthony Davis. After that, the Mavs have been carefully retooling their roster. This move fits perfectly within their philosophy of building a stronger, more versatile defensive unit. Under Nico Harrison's leadership, the Mavericks seem focused on adding long, athletic players who can contribute on both sides of the ball. While offense is obviously important, the Mavericks' defense was their biggest weakness last season, and this trade addresses that directly. Adding a player like Caleb Martin gives them more defensive flexibility, particularly on the perimeter, where they've needed help for some time. The role of defense in winning championships is something that Nico Harrison stressed when he made this move. It's clear the Mavericks see defense as a pillar of their strategy, which makes sense given how the NBA is evolving. Teams are looking for well-rounded, two-way players who can switch between multiple positions and provide stability across the floor. Martin is a versatile defender who can guard twos, threes, and even fours at times, an essential skill set for modern NBA basketball. What does this trade mean for the Mavericks' rotation? This trade not only adds depth but gives the Mavericks options when it comes to their rotation. The fact that Martin is capable of playing multiple positions means that head coach Jason Kidd has more flexibility. For example, Martin could start at small forward and be paired with P.J. Washington at the 4. Alternatively, if the Mavericks want to go big, Martin could come off the bench, while the team uses taller players in the starting lineup like Davis or Lively. This positional flexibility is invaluable for teams looking to adjust their lineup based on matchups or injuries. We've seen this throughout the NBA, especially in the playoffs, where rotations become much more fluid and dependent on the opponent. So, Martin's versatility gives the Mavericks an important asset that can adjust to a variety of scenarios. Another interesting angle is how this trade may impact the development of other players. For instance, this move could open up more opportunities for Max Christie, who was also acquired recently. Christie and Martin might be fighting for similar roles, but the competition could push both players to step up their games. Looking beyond the trade, what's next for the Mavericks? While this move does make the Mavericks a bit more balanced, there's still a lot of uncertainty surrounding their roster. There's a very real chance that this trade won't be the last one they make. With the trade deadline looming, the Mavericks could still be active, looking to strengthen even further. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a few more moves to add another impactful player or solidify positions that they feel could still use some work. The Mavericks have been surprisingly active during this off-season, and they've been in the mix for several big names. Their pursuit of a better-rounded team is clear. They want to be a playoff contender, but they also want to be ready for the long haul. If they make another move, it could very well be a big one, or perhaps they'll look for a more specialized player to round out their bench. Regardless, this is definitely not the end of their trade activity. Reassessing the second-round pick trade, one of the more controversial aspects of the deal is the Mavericks giving up a second-round pick. It's always tough to part with draft picks, especially second-round ones, which often become valuable as potential role players or trade assets down the line. However, I think we need to keep in mind that the Mavericks have been fairly liberal with their draft picks lately. Remember, they traded away a second-round pick in the Luka deal as well, and they've managed to get first-round picks in return for some of those. In this case, the Mavericks don't seem too worried about their future draft picks. They've clearly prioritized building a competitive team now rather than focusing too much on a rebuilding phase. While it's always important to consider the long-term impact of trades, this might just be part of the Mavericks' strategy to stay competitive in the immediate future. The bigger picture, is Martin enough to push the Mavericks to contender status? It's a fair question. Will Caleb Martin's addition push the Mavericks to championship contention? Right now, I'm not sure. The Mavericks are definitely a much better defensive team now, but it's going to take more than just this trade to put them in the same conversation as the league's elite teams. They still need another star player or two. ideally one who can take the scoring load off of Luka Doncic and Davis. That said, the move still represents a step in the right direction. Martin's ability to knock down shots from beyond the arc and defend multiple positions is something the Mavericks need as they try to solidify their identity. They've got an exciting roster, but they need more depth and consistency to compete at the highest level. Final thoughts. Is this the right move for the Mavericks? In my opinion, this trade represents a good step for the Mavericks. It may not be a game changer, but it's a solid move that addresses some of the team's key weaknesses. Adding a defensive-minded player like Martin gives them more versatility, depth, and flexibility in their rotation, which will pay off as the season progresses. The question still looms: is this enough to push them into contender status? I think that remains to be seen, but the Mavericks are clearly heading in the right direction. They have a solid core with Luka, Davis, and now Martin, and if they continue to make strategic moves, they could be a very tough team to face in the postseason. So, to wrap things up, I'm optimistic about the direction the Mavericks are taking. The trade makes sense, and it's a reminder that sometimes the best moves aren't the flashy ones, but the ones that fill specific needs and provide flexibility. What do you all think? Do you agree with the trade, or do you think the Mavs should have done more? Let me know your thoughts, and be sure to subscribe for more updates as we head into the trade deadline.